So not too long ago in a particular online discussion in an anti-AA group that I'm kind of involved in, as a matter of fact, I have another video that I intend to put out pretty soon. It's an older video. It's already been recorded. I just never actually uploaded it. Uh, about a particular anti-AA group I was an administrator for and the drama that happened in that group. But in the current group I'm in, which is a much tighter run group, I've got real good administrators working with me in it. There's no trolls, there's no horseshit drama like this other particular group I want to make a video about. But somehow or the other, somebody had commented upon the saying that you hear at a lot of these AA meetings where the person says, you know, what you think of me is none of my business. And it strikes me the irony of this, because while indeed you're not supposed to let other people determine how you feel, or you're not supposed to let other people determine how you live your life, and you're not supposed to be obsessed about the way other people think about you, it occurred to me that the program of AA is run on nothing but that: appearances, acting, optics, and illusions. If you notice, the old-timers, they're obsessed about the way they share in meetings. They're obsessed about the type of attention they get. They're obsessed about their sobriety dates. They're obsessed about the way the public sees them. And the people who are like a little lower on the so-called hierarchy of their society are all obsessed about saying the right things in the meetings and getting the slogans right and telling the right stories and having the right spiritual experiences and having the right shares that everybody can nod their heads to vigorously, because there's nothing at all honest about the AA program. So if there's nothing honest about the AA program, what else does it have but appearances and optics? I remember a situation one time where there was an old-timer that was talking, and he was in one of his favorite drunkalog tales, and he had all the right jokes, which I could have told you the punchlines to, because I'd already heard them 1,000 fucking times. But something, I don't remember now what it was. There was something that happened outside, some kind of accident, some kind of wreck. I don't remember what it was, but there was a loud noise in the meeting room, and for just a couple of seconds, the meeting was broken up. And nobody else was actually looking right at this guy while he was telling his usual drunk-along tale. I just happened to be sitting right across from him and I was looking right at him. And there was this look of disgust and anger and hatred that crossed his face because his share had got interrupted. For a person who would say the program's not all about themselves and what other people think of them doesn't matter, they're sure obsessed with how other people think of them and look at them. But is that really true? Can we ever reach a point where other people's behaviors towards us doesn't influence us in some way? I can say that when you're surrounded by a toxic environment like AA is, or when you're surrounded by a lot of toxic family members like I used to be, that has a lot to do in determining how you live and how you see the world and how you see yourself. It also has a lot to do with the opinions you formulate about yourself. Meaning you can't really get any, I would think of any good solid foundational methods to examine your own self or look at yourself with any type of self-confidence as long as you're in an organization that bases everything on self-abasement, on you demeaning your own existence as a person because you're an alcoholic, and one that constantly tells you you're never going to be good enough, you're never going to be well, and you're never going to be cured. It occurred to me that while they talk a good talk about, you know, what you think of me is none of my business, that's all just empty, hollow words that mean absolutely nothing to these people. It's another part of what the program does. The program is all optics. The program is all acting for the most part, and it's not good acting either, you know. And funny note, there's a younger family member of mine, she's like 10 or 11 years old, that I suggested some old movie to when she sent me some birthday card not too long ago, and I just sent something back to her. But anyway, she had sent me this email online, and she had said, did people in the 1940s and the 1950s really talk like that in the movies? Of course, for her age, I think most of it sailed over her head, and she didn't like it at all. But the answer, of course, to that is no. In the times before the 60s, when they started getting interested in realism, like in the early 60s with the British and the kitchen sink realism, the French had a similar movement and everything. The earlier films had no interest whatsoever in having everyday ordinary people talk like everyday ordinary people. It was supposed to be, as it was billed a lot of the times in the theaters, it was supposed to be larger than life. And that's why, when you had somebody like Richard Burton, when he would enunciate each word carefully and he spoke so clearly and concisely, or when you had even a Bela Lugosi back in the 1930s, when he acted a certain character a certain way, he acted with with both his body language, his emotions, his words, everything was meant to be. It was meant to be like the older movies will do sometimes when you're watching them. They sweep you away because you're so caught up in the performances of everybody that you forget you're kind of watching a movie for a few moments. The people in AA that refer to themselves in that line in the big book about the alcoholic is always an actor. I'm like, yeah, but you're not good actors. You're not convincing actors. And you people act like sometimes in the meetings like you're trying out for Academy Awards, and nobody would give you a fucking Academy Award for these shitty performances and these piss poor stories and these cliched ways that you seem to talk and view everything and everybody. It used to kill me when somebody, there was one guy, he thought he was being so fucking clever when he would say this. He'd say, I always judge my insides by what other people's outsides looked at me like and all that. What you're really saying underneath all this horse shit, you're saying you let other people determine how you feel. That's what you're fucking saying. And you're still doing it now. It's just you're doing it by AA, because as long as the AA group anoints you and as long as the AA group accepts you, then you're not supposed to care about the outside world, for example. AA gives you no coping skills, by the way, as to how you're supposed to get to a place in your life where the judgments of other people does not affect you. AA gives you no insight into the maybe the inner workings of your mind that led you to believe you're not good enough and need the approval of others. AA has no solid advice over that. All it has you do is pray, go to meetings, talk to sponsors, get demeaned, get abused, get gaslit, and rinse, repeat over and over again. As a matter of fact, one of the closest philosophers in history, which ironically enough, considering his life, was a French guy named Michel De Montaigne, I think, or De Montaigne, maybe, I don't know. This is Jersey trying to talk French. Doesn't work. But he was an aristocrat. He was the quintessential Renaissance guy. He had a lot of money, a lot of wealth. He was involved in state government. He was involved in a whole lot of things. And right around like his 30s or his early 40s, he decided he didn't want to do any of that anymore. He retired to his castle, and he said, I want to write. And then he said, but I don't know what the fuck I want to write about. So I'll just write about myself. I'll write about how embarrassing I am. He wrote about how sometimes he got so hungry when he was eating, he would bite his own fingers. He talked about how the cows and the pigs that mingled around outside, they never seemed to have any problems with going to the bathroom when they needed to go to the bathroom. They weren't embarrassed by, in other words, using the bathroom in public like human beings were. As a matter of fact, he got so hung up on this that he realized that men have little to no control over their bodies, and sometimes men have little to no control over their actions. And he figured out that a lot of the times, because of social pressure and societal pressures, that people feel a broad sense of inferiority that is completely, totally made up and unwanted and unwarranted. As a matter of fact, some people consider De Montaigne to be the first psychiatrist. In an amusing tale, there was a guy who come to him that told him, I like girls, I like women a lot, but I have this problem. It's a problem every guy is familiar with. It's called performance anxiety. And he's like, I can't actually do anything in the bedroom, and I don't know what to do about this because women kind of laugh at me when this situation props up. And his advice to the guy was, why don't you tell them you got that problem before you get started? Why don't you, when you go to the bedroom with your girlfriend, why don't you tell her that you have a problem with performance anxiety and see what happens? And the guy supposedly wrote back to him and said, once I told her everything that was wrong with me, the night went very smoothly and lovemaking was great. In other words, he believed in addressing your humiliations, and he believed in addressing the feelings of inadequacy by just saying these things exist. You're going to do stupid things. You're going to make stupid mistakes. You're not always going to take the right action. You're not always going to make the right decision. You're going to do things in public sometimes where you say, God damn it, that was a dumbass question I asked that person. Or where you're laying awake in bed at night like the popular internet meme where the guy says, that thing I said at that party 15 years ago, that was fucking stupid. Why am I still, these things are not things that can be avoided, and they're certainly not something that you can ever feel any better about yourself with a bunch of fucking moral inventories and a bunch of self-abasement and a bunch of I'm a sick, low-life, disgusting alcoholic who's just never going to be good enough in life whatsoever, but what other people think of me is none of my business. It's kind of contradictory in nature to believe you're ever going to heal or get any better under such circumstances. In a situation like this particular French philosopher, I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to say his name again, but I'll post a link to one of the videos about him in the comment section below so you can figure it out, had mentioned about the stupidity of mistakes that people make and about the way that we have no control over our own bodies in terms of embarrassing things that happen in public, because just like in the Renaissance era and in the time period in which he lived, there was a whole lot of societal pressure by everything how you folded your napkin to how you ate with your fork to if you burped in public or not. For example, I remember a long time ago, my car had broke down and I was working at a huge factory, and I drove my girlfriend's car to work, and I got there and I worked like 12 hours, and I got off work and I was going to look for my car and I couldn't find it. And to make matters worse, one of my coworkers came up to me and he said, you know, what's wrong with you? You look a little lost out here. And I said, I can't find my fucking car. I think it's been stolen. So we got in the car together. We drove around, and at one point we even passed a car, and I said, you know, my girlfriend drives a car just like that. And then I kind of realized what had happened. And I tried to wiggle out of the situation by saying to myself, you know, just drop me off at the front office. I'm sure everything's going to be okay. And then, of course, he managed to coax the truth out of me, and I said, you're not going to tell anybody about this, are you? You know, and then, of course, the next day when I walked in, people were like, hey, did you ever see that movie, Dude, Where's My Car? And all that other shit. And it was kind of like, okay, I feel fucking stupid. I feel idiotic. I feel ridiculous. I feel like less than a man. And that's actually okay. It's not a big deal to make a fool out of yourself once in a while. It's not a big deal to say the wrong thing. It's not a big deal to look inadequate. It's not a big deal to actually make mistakes in life. It's a big deal when you're in the religious cult of Quackaholics Anonymous, because you actually have to be perfect. See, they'll tell you it's progress, not perfection, but then at the same time, if you don't share the right lingo, if you show human emotions, if you show that you're vulnerable, you have a whole team of predatory assholes that are out to beat you down and crush you into not belonging to their sick, disgusting cult that I don't think any rational or sane person would want to be a part of anyway. And I think I've kind of rambled as long as I can ramble on the subject at hand. But anyway, the holidays are coming up, and I don't know if I'll make any kind of Christmas videos or anything like that, or if you'll even see me again before 2022. I'm going to have a hard time writing that on my checks, 2022. I'll be writing 21 for a long time, so I'll have another Michel De Montaigne moment. Until next time.